Raymar, it has been a pleasure. Thank you so much for joining us.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
You too.
Bye-bye.
Hello.
Kristin, hi. You have a very fun Twitter handle.
Yeah, so I have to apologize. I'm borrowing a friend's Twitter account, and this is LeBron playing chess as the profile, so two of his great loves. So that's the explanation behind that.
2 points for creativity.
Yeah. So Kristin Casper here, not Chris Riggs.
Well, I saw Anna mention like our next speaker, and I was like, all right, we're good. That's not the name I was expected. So first, to all of those who are listening in, this guest, Kristin, joining us is actually really exciting, and is a little bit different than what we've had. Kristin was actually very instrumental in kind of a lot of the educational components of a social enterprise called Bosh Bosh. And so Charlene, the founder, is actually in Liberia right now working on this amazing organization. And so we are so grateful to have Kristin join us, who can kind of tell us a little bit about her role in that organization, a little bit about her journey to service, and I'm sure a lot of other amazing things. So Kristin, can you tell us a little bit about yourself?
Sure, thank you. So I guess where it all started is both of my parents served in the Peace Corps in the late 70s and the 80s. They actually met in the Peace Corps as volunteers in Cameroon. And so they got married after their service. I came about, and I identify as a Peace Corps baby. So my whole life basically has taken into consideration service. And for me, it's always been, okay, graduate from college, and then at some point I'm going to do the Peace Corps, and then maybe a career will come after that, I'll think about that later.
Hey, I got 2 years.
So my parents really talked about service as a high priority and value in our family, and that's carried with me throughout my entire life. And so when I signed up for the Peace Corps, I was stationed in Liberia, where Liberia is unique for Peace Corps programs because they actually put volunteers together at sites, where in other countries they send them off by themselves. So I was living with Charlene Espinoza, the founder of Bosh Bosh, before Bosh Bosh was even around. And
you were there for the creation.
Yeah, which was really exciting and really unique in so many ways. So, and we lived together for 30 months in Bon County, which is in the center of Liberia. And I could go off in so many different directions with this conversation, but I think what was really nice and special to watch this project come about was that we got to spend a good 2 months being trained on Liberia and the culture and the language, and then we got to spend several months just living in our community before this even organically came up as a need to create a support structure for girls in our community. So it was a really organic initiative, and I'm so impressed with where it's gone and where Charlene's taken it along with her Liberian counterpart in the last, 3 years. It's been a short period of time, but so much has been accomplished. So yeah, I'm very, very proud of them. And my role in Bosh Bosh was a thought partner for Charlene, as we are both very intimately involved with our community. And so we're really thinking about how to structure the Bosh Bosh project. And she asked me right upon inception and of creating Bosh Bosh as an official NGO to design the education aspect, because there's an element of entrepreneurship and vocational training, but then we also wanted the members to be supported academically. So that's where I came on and designed the program to support the girls in that sense. So it was a dream come true.
Yeah, and even just the week, what Charlene's been able to get off the ground and really implement while she's in Liberia has been very cool. If you guys want to see that, you can follow Bosh Bosh on Facebook. I think it's facebook.com/the Bosh Bosh Project. Mm-hmm. Sounds about right. So let's go back and let's explain Bosh Bosh a little bit, because there are so many facets of this really unique organization in Liberia. So I know that there's education, there's employment, and there's empowerment. Can you kind of put those in the jigsaw puzzle and explain how this company runs?
Sure. So I should first explain the name of the group. Bosh Bosh
came. A great story.
So Bosh Bosh comes from the phrase Posh Posh, which is how our community kept describing these, what we call lapa in Liberia, but I know a lot of communities and countries throughout Africa call it different things, but that really bright, colorful material you see a lot of people wearing either as headscarves or as just skirts or as part of the material for their clothes. And so what would happen is some over time would deteriorate, or tailors would have extra scraps left over. So they would just put all the scraps together, and it would be called Posh Posh, kind of like patch patch. And so from there, we did a little bit of a wordplay and just put bees on it and called it Bosh Bosh. And that's really kind of talking about the beginning of Bosh Bosh, where Charlene and I were both teachers at our school. And there was a girls' club there, but it was really struggling to kind of find purpose and a mission. A lot of girls' clubs we noticed in Liberia affiliated with schools were they did have a community of girls, but they were doing projects like baking cornbread and then selling it and using that money to buy T-shirts. So there was some purpose, there was some fellowship, but there was so much more that could be done. And so the head of the girls program at our school, Sis Yama, who is now Charlene's counterpart and one of the leaders of Bosh Bosh, came and talked to Charlene about an idea she had, which was to do a sewing project with the girls, inspired from a bag that she had bought on a trip to Sierra Leone. And in Sierra Leone, they were selling these bags in the markets made out of lapa, and they were beautiful. And so Charlene and Sis Yama were like, this would be great. Let's have the girls maybe practice sewing. And sewing is traditionally a male profession in Liberia, which from an American Western perspective was really unique because we consider that a very female career in the United States. And so it's very male dominated, very few female tailors. And so we basically went to our local tailors and said, we don't have money to buy actual lapa, but do you have any scraps that you're just discarding from the clothes, the shirts, and the dresses that you're making, and can we just use them and we're going to practice sewing with them? So we would meet in our school library once a week, and the girls with literally needle and thread would just sit on the library floor and just start practicing sewing pieces together. After a couple weeks, we thought, well, why don't we try actually making something? We'll play with like little bags, like the bags you saw in Sierra Leone.
Much more fun when you actually make something, right? And you get to see the product.
Instead of just like really long pieces of scraps. So we started making bags, and then the Peace Corps community, the volunteers would come and visit us in Sala and said like, hey, these bags are really great. Can we buy them? And we're like, sure, that sounds good. And the girls had interest in that. And really fast forwarding 2 years later, Charlene started incorporating actual designs of bags. She asked a tailor that was my host family tailor in a neighboring city to come and live in Sala. And then his sole purpose is to teach these girls tailoring. And so it just became this really great vocational after school program where the girls met. They had this fellowship, but then they were also learning the tangible skill of sewing, which they could not only apply to maybe a future career as a tailor, but they could also avoid paying fees to sew their school clothes together at the beginning of every school year, to repair their school clothes, to also to sew the clothes of their children or family members as needed. And so that was also a skill we were excited about. And then from there, it really developed to a more educational aspect, as all these girls were students in our school. And we noticed that they were struggling with their academic institution as a whole and the support they were getting. And so it kind of evolved from there. So the vocational aspect is sewing. And then the education part is helping the girls with their school projects and work, is encouraging them to read and utilize the library and being champions of literacy in their school. And then also we've had a big piece of Bosh Bosh now is something called a STAR project, where the girls brought up this idea of another project where they use lapa scraps and cardboard and design these beautiful stars that sell so quickly that you can hang from a Christmas tree or hang from your ceiling or just have sit on a desktop. And they use those funds, 60% of those funds, to contribute to a community service project in their community, which is lacking a lot of development funds, basically, is the best way to put it. So the first project they did was to paint their school with those funds. So I'll stop right there because I could go off on so many different tangents, but there's a lot of pieces to Bosh Bosh that have organically kind of come up, and we've just run with it, and it's been great.
Well, I know, and I actually put the link to my podcast interview with you because we've touched on a little bit of this before, and I will add the link with Charlene, because when we connected, it's really crazy how comprehensive Bosh Bosh is, because it's a social enterprise. It's also kind of morphs and takes this almost NGO role. And then I believe you guys also have a nonprofit standing. I'm guessing that's here that you have the nonprofit. So, I mean, you have your nonprofit, you have your NGO, you have your social enterprise. It is very complex. So that was a big question. I'm actually going to rewind just a little bit and talk about when you brought the tailor in, because one of the cool things about Bosh Bosh is the quality of the products that you guys make. And that's something we've touched on a little bit this week, but not a ton, of how important the quality of your product is. It's not just about the mission. Your product has to be top notch as well. So can you kind of describe both maybe one or two examples of the products you make, and then what kind of measures you take to make sure they're quality?
Yeah, great. So one of our biggest selling bags that we make, so we really started with the concept of bags and have kind of evolved from there. But the market bag is a really top-notch seller because, and it's really resonated, I think, with the Western community that lives in Liberia and outside of Liberia in the United States, as we're talking about more sustainable ways of not using plastic bags when shopping, not using other kind of throwaway items, and these market bags are becoming a hot item in the States. So that's been really nice, and they're in bright, fun colors. And they're also extremely sturdy. I've probably pushed the limit on how much it should hold, and they've all held up really, really well. So I've been really happy about that.
We got busy lives. We have a lot that we have to fit into our bags.
Just stuff it in and just pray it doesn't break, and they've been great. And we also, another hot item that really flies off the racks is a clutch. It's a very small kind of hand purse, and that's been really great for people in Liberia to put their cell phones in their wallets, and especially when you're running through the market, you can really have that close hold and hold on to that. And they're just in fun colors too. And some kind of off the beaten trail products that Bosh Bosh has made, we've experimented with ties, which actually President Obama has his own tie. We gave him one.
Oh, like a tie. I'm thinking a hair tie. Yeah. Like a tie.
Yeah, a tie. We've been trying with bow ties, but had a little difficulty in the structure there. But we've made long ties, and we gave one to President Obama. I don't know if he wears it or not, but that would be great. And hair bands is one area we've gone off into as well. And basically what's fun about Bosh Bosh is that creative element. We're really intimate and willing to take design suggestions and play around with that to see where the interest is from a consumer standpoint. And so from there, we've developed yoga bags to hold yoga mats as well, and laptop cases. And so there's a lot of variety to it. And a lot of it's just based on people sending Charlene or the Bosh Bosh community suggestions like, hey, this would be a great idea. And it's just fun to run with it. We're not limited by the few designs that we started off with. So, and to speak to the quality, I think we found a really wonderful tailor. He's actually born in Sierra Leone in a small rural community in the eastern side of Sierra Leone, but because of the Civil War, moved to Liberia and has been here ever since, and had a very lucrative business in a city called Kakata, but was so interested in the mission, which pertains to his two children as well, who are now involved in the Bosh Bosh project, a girl and a boy. And so it's become a personal life choice for him to engage fully with his family and him as a career. And he just basically picked up and restarted in Sala for the benefit of the girl. So it's been really nice.
Oh, cool. Yeah, I mean, so many things that are going on with them, and just there's so much potential. As far as the market goes, one of the cool things that I found out when I talked with Charlene was actually that while they are working on breaking into the American market, that actually most of their products are being sold in Liberia. And then they're kind of creating this market there. Can you touch on that?
Yeah, and that's been a really important and exciting kind of thought process to work through. Is there are a lot of things being imported into the United States, but what honestly makes Bosh Bosh sell is the story and the connection to Liberia, which really doesn't have a lot of products that it's making for people who come to the country, whether it's for work or for tourist purposes, to carry back with them and really represent their trip and the community that they interacted with. And so we've talked about many times, like, how can we export to the US? I mean, we tried selling Bosh Bosh even in our local market, but unfortunately the amount of money we're trying to raise for the educational programs and for paying the people who are teaching our girls how to sew didn't work out with the amount of money available in our local economy. So that's when we really focused on the Monrovia population, and where there's a lot of people who come and do work for State Department or work on aid projects or NGOs, and are willing to invest that money into a project they believe in. And so there was just enough demand there to even keep up with. It would be nice just to kind of spread the breadth of where Bosh Bosh is. But in regards to demand, I mean, the population that's in Liberia right now is definitely plenty for sure. And that's been nice. It's nice to keep it local, actually. Go ahead.
Go ahead. Did I actually see that the store that you guys opened, like a physical storefront, was in Monrovia? Did I see that on the Facebook this week? Exciting.
Yeah, and that's really exciting because that's really where the consumer base is. But there's still, again, this is kind of a philosophical conversation we're having at the moment. I mean, Liberia, due to 14 years of civil war, became very centralized. I mean, before the war, everything was based out of Monrovia, but due to the war, more of the rural population and the overall population of Liberia moved to the cities. So we've talked about numerous times, like, Bosh Bosh, maybe we should move everything to the cities because that's where the demand is. We could grow so big. We can satisfy we could employ so many people, satisfy so many customers. Like, we could really grow. But then really at the core and the mission of Bosh Bosh is that intimacy with the people that we work with. So I think this dynamic of having a storefront in Monrovia helps meet that demand to create the revenue to keep the project going. But really the heart and soul and the headquarters is still in Sala. And we really, right now, are talking about the impact that might have if we stay local and how important that is. And it's an ongoing conversation, but it's an important one.
I think that's so essential. And it's something else we've kind of talked a little bit this week on, when it comes time to pivot. And when it comes time to even just change things, that you need to go back and you say, well, what aligns best with our mission? And what, there's maybe even some other efforts that you care about, but it really comes back to, are these decisions really impacting our mission and keeping us true to what we're trying to achieve?
And so, yeah, it's been a really hard conversation because you think about, well, at the end of the day, we could take this concept of Bosh Bosh, for example, and we can employ hundreds of more people to meet that demand. And then you're employing so many people, which is great. That's what we want to do, is to really boost the economy, right? But then you have to think about, I mean, for the person who kind of set up the education project, is you want to really think about the sustainable change you're creating. It's not just about kind of the money in the moment, but it's about the positive behavior change we're trying to help support. It's about the discussions we're trying to have intimately with a small group of people. And that's really going to hold the sustainability, is investing in a small group of people to then have that trickle effect. They'll spread that positive behavior change to their family, to their community, and stress, like we talk about the importance of education, and that's a narrative we want them to continue. And so where, unfortunately Bosh Bosh disappeared after 10 years and those jobs disappear, right? So here it's like, if you're really investing in the people as a project, then it's going to have such a lasting effect afterwards. And so that's the continual conversation we have. Are we going to go small size but high quality and really get a lot of great social educational work done as well, or do we kind of go big in breadth and employ a lot of people? And so it's been fascinating. It's been really interesting.
Lots of things on the horizon, I'm sure. Well, at this time, I'm actually kind of curious, and I'd like to pivot on a little bit of your role and a little bit of your journey, because you are actually our second person on the conference who's completed 2 terms of service. You also did World Teach. So I have to admit, that's actually not a program I'm super familiar with. So can you tell us a little bit about that?
Yeah, definitely. So World Teach is similar to Peace Corps in that it's promoting people to engage in service opportunities around the world. It's different in many, many ways. And my current job now is working with Peace Corps headquarters as a country desk officer. So I'm even more intimately familiar with how different the 2 programs are.
We're going to get there in a second. So with World Teach.
But World Teach only works in a couple countries, and I happened to apply to and was selected for the program in Micronesia. And for those of you...
Okay. Yeah, I don't know
who are familiar with Micronesia, yes, it is small, based on the micro part of the name. And it's in the Pacific, right around the equator, the Pacific Ocean. And it's made up of 4 main islands and a lot of outer islands. And the main island that I was on was Koshrai, and it's about 6,000 people, the population. It's very, very small. And it's interesting. I went there as a teacher, and I was teaching English at the high school, and it's just a fascinating place. And I don't think a lot of Americans are aware. And this is, my elevator speech I was to tell people about Micronesia is that a lot of Micronesians are invested in the United States and actually participate in our military, join our military, have fought in Iraq, have fought in Afghanistan, because there isn't a lot of opportunity on their island. So they actually apply for U.S. citizenship, and there's a big draw to Hawaii and a big draw to California. And that was very eye-opening that, you want to provide higher education, but then once you have that higher education, they're like, where do I go? I'm going to go seek opportunity outside, and that's typically in the United States. So that was one of my big takeaways from Micronesia. Fascinating and lovely place.
Great. Well, it's so interesting how much of your service has been around education. Mm-hmm. I believe you were actually a teacher in the Peace Corps when you were in Liberia. Then your role as a teacher with World Teach. What drew you to education?
I think naturally education, just is a very big passion of mine. It played such a big role in my life. And I think that's where it's really the platform for a lot of important conversations that then trickle out to other aspects of your life, whether it's employment or how you plan your family and how you build your family and your community. And it's just a great venue to talk about real change and positive change, which is kind of my phrase, is I really like to think about things not as the in the moment action, but about the change that, sustains afterwards. And so education is where you can really talk about values, and you can apply practical problems to the classroom setting. So for example, with my 12th grade students in Micronesia, one project that we talked about in our English class is the Compact, which is the United States agreement with Micronesia, and that kind of relationship and dynamic and what's going to happen when that compact expires. So as an English project, we were reading about this topic and then writing about it. So you're using that platform to talk about something that's really relevant and important to their life as soon to be leaders in their community. So that opportunity is exciting. It's really exciting. It connects you to a network that's really just energized by learning is what I find. And those are the people you want to be engaged with in your community.
Well, it also is just so great, and a lot of education's moving to this multifaceted aspect of education. Yes, it's under the English column, but we're actually, we're writing, we're discussing, we're having this more of a breadth to our singular topic, and it matches real life so much more. Mm-hmm. So very exciting that you were implementing that through your service as well. So tell us about this role that you currently have with Peace Corps. It's absolutely fascinating.
It has been fascinating. I mean, going from being a volunteer for about between 4 to 5 years, and then I'm working for the Peace Corps, which is something I think a lot of people forget is a federal agency. And so I am technically a government employee, but I am working on a federal initiative to support volunteerism and to support all the great things that come from that. Not only are we, our 3 goals of Peace Corps is meeting a need for skills. So we're going to countries that have specifically asked for volunteers. That's an important thing, and said, hey, we have this specific niche of need. Can you come and fill this teaching need? Or please come and help with water and sanitation. I mean, we just need that extra boost, especially with people who are on the ground. So not only do we meet that need, but also it's really important for Americans to learn about other countries. I think just simply learning about international communities through the optics of social media and the news can be very limiting. And
not super accurate. I mean, let's be honest.
Right. And so it's just so important to have that personal connection. And so that's really...
Wait, are you telling me that I can't take everything on social media for truth? Is that what's going on? Ooh.
I would be cautious. I'd be very cautious.
But that was my news source. Just kidding.
But that's just an education. I think that's so, and not to go off on a million tangents, is so important for, us as technology users. I mean, it's not just an optional thing we can tune into now. And I think the millennial generation and those below us, I mean, this is how you communicate. This is how you get information. And I think we need to really distinguish what is complete fact and what is additional. It's like that culture around using media. So
I was waiting for your word to describe it. I mean,
That's why I say everyone should join Peace Corps. You just really get the experience you need to really understand the dynamics and the culture, and people come back. I think the most important thing about Peace Corps is we have more American citizens with the intercultural skills, the diversity skills, the language skills, the actual comprehensive understanding of what's going on. And I'm happy that those people go and work in so many different sectors, not only public, but private, and are becoming parents like my parents, who are raising children who are more aware, more globally aware, and more aware of service and its importance. So that's my plug for Peace Corps. I think I think everyone should take at least a year or two out of their life to really commit to service, whether it's domestic or international. I think there's a lot of important things that come from that.
Well, and it really does just bring up the point that when you volunteer, you get such a different dynamic and appreciation for the issue or topic that you're working to address. Mm-hmm. I mean, everyone who's come on this week has pretty much sung a very similar story of, when I went through this process, I really had a better understanding. It wasn't only the skills, it wasn't only the social entrepreneurship elements that we're talking about. It was also, I had a better appreciation. Mm-hmm. But my co-host actually has a great question that I'm going to throw up. And what do you think about the new application process for the Peace Corps?
This is a great question, and a pretty controversial one, I should say, for some what we call return Peace Corps volunteers, or RPCVs. Because historically, for those of you who aren't familiar with Peace Corps, we've been around since the early 60s. And since that time, you basically applied to the Peace Corps stating your commitment to service. So you say, I want to serve for 27 months, whatever that means or wherever that is, it doesn't matter because the commitment of service is there. And so you could end up going through an application process that lasted 2 years sometimes to eventually end up in a country you've never heard of, doing something you never dreamed of, but it was about service. That was the core of it. Mm-hmm. So after much debate, years of debate, Peace Corps really struggled with, not only were they getting fewer applications, because there's also a lot more venues for service, not just Peace Corps now, which is great. I mean, I think there's organizations like World Teach out there. There's more study abroad programs. There's more options for Americans to get that similar experience. And a generation now is getting used to choosing where they want to go and what they want to do. And it's also difficult too, because if you're someone who you've studied Chinese for 5 years and that was your major in undergrad, and then you go and you serve in South Africa doing something that doesn't really use your skill base. I mean, you want to make those relevant connections, and then you're building a skill set to really make you, a great employee in the future. And
to bring that component to your service too. Say, I can serve even better because of the skill set.
Exactly. And so really providing more tangible skills that can be used. And so there was a want to make more of that connection. And it's actually proved to be really great for Peace Corps. We've had significantly more applications. I think people are excited about that option to choose where they can go, a little bit more of that control. That being said, though, still about, I believe, and don't quote me, about 50% of our applicants still say they will go anywhere, that they will serve anywhere. So still maintaining that concept of service. But then there's also people who what we changed as well is that before, if you had any family relation in that country, we asked that you not go there to serve because of this kind of strange pressure you might receive from family members while you're trying to commit to a Peace Corps service. But now people can go back. So we're really trying to tap into diaspora populations. So if your family, for example, is from Liberia, but you left when you were 4 years old because of the war, and now you can go back and have that chance to serve and to meet the need of those people. I mean, that's an exciting opportunity that's relatively new. So there's a lot of positive changes, but I say it's controversial because a lot of RPCVs say it's about service. It's not about, having choice. It's about that concept. But I think there's a lot of needs that are being met by being able to choose where you go and what projects to participate in as well.
Well, it's so interesting because also one of our guests last night, Marky from the Women's Bakery, the one country she said she didn't want to go to was Rwanda. And where did she end up? In Rwanda.
Yeah.
But now she's gone and she's created this incredible organization that's very multifaceted and it's doing great things. And she's, I wouldn't change that. But at the same time, one country. The one country she didn't want to go to was Rwanda. And there she was.
And so that's kind of the beauty and the opportunity, right? If you open yourself up to an experience you wouldn't have chosen, then so many great things can come from that. And like Charlene and I both said, we would serve anywhere. And we ended up in Liberia. And look, Charlene really just kind of tuned in to was just so open-minded and just willing to go where the winds blew her. And the winds blew her towards entrepreneurship. They blew her towards education. And it's just, she's taken it off in such a beautiful direction. So sometimes that open-mindedness is just really the key.
It is. And I will say that Charlene did have to look up where Liberia was on a map because she'd never heard from it.
Oh, yeah. But with family being like, are you going to Libya? And we'd have to be like, no.
That's great. Well, Kristin, it has been absolutely amazing to have you. We are unfortunately out of time and our next guest is ready to go. So Nick, if you could call in, and this has been incredible. And everyone, I did put the link to our podcast episode on there. So I do hope you listen in. It was pretty incredible and it aired last week.
Thank you for having me.
And let's make sure I exit out the right person.